He is back, my partner in crime, my brother, the man, the myth, the legend, Matthew Arne. And today we are doing some heavy starting pitcher debates. So make sure you stay locked on for today's action-packed episode of Locked On Fantasy Baseball.
You are Locked On Fantasy Baseball, your daily fantasy baseball podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, fantasy baseball fanatics, and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, we're your number one source of fantasy baseball knowledge, and thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. I'm your host, Dominic Martino. You can find me on Twitter at DomMartinoFB. Here, as always, once again, as I mentioned, he's back today. My partner, my brother, my better half, Matthew Arne, and you can find him on Twitter at Matthew_Arne. And if you're watching on YouTube and you haven't already, hit that little bell below. It will subscribe you to the channel and give you a notification every time we drop a new episode. Or if you're listening on a platform like Apple or Spotify that allows 5-star ratings and reviews, we would truly appreciate it if you could do that for us. And lastly, most importantly to Matt, and important to you this time of year, join us on the Subtext platform. Guys, through Subtext, you get an in-depth, personalized text messaging alerts right to your phone, offering so much more than we can in this 30-minute podcast. And guess what? We will be releasing our 2025 rankings, sleepers, breakouts, bust, so much more. And if you are interested in joining us on the subtext to get access to all of that and more, check for the link in the bio wherever you're listening or watching, or it's available on any of our social media platforms. And today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Whew. All right. Wanted to get through that quick so we can get through as many starting pitcher names as possible today. Matt missed you yesterday. I'm sure the fans did as well. It's not fun doing the starting pitcher thing without you because, you know what, that's what we're known for, and we love to go back and forth. But, Matt, you're here. Let's just get into it, brother. Where are we going first?
Appreciate it. Thanks for the amazing welcome in.
Maybe
next time my daughter can learn how to walk and not split her eyebrow open, and then I could make a show. I'm totally kidding. My kid's fine. She just had to get her eyebrow, glued. It is what it is. But she's okay. Let's get into this. So today's episode is going to be a little different since I missed yesterday. And, literally after 10, Dom and I get real funky. And, there's a lot of parodies between us. So we've picked a bunch of names that, we have some either big differences on or we, kind of agree on a couple things. So we might be bouncing around a little bit. And to start off with, it's Shota Imanaga from the Chicago Cubs. I feel like it's our biggest deficit. Dom has him ranked at 35. I have him ranked at 15. That is a massive difference for the two of us to literally be 20 picks apart on him. So it tells me that I'm going to get him in every league, and Dom's just going to miss out this year. You look at what he did this year, and he was very impressive. Dom and I both told you last year that we thought he was just going to be the next, whatever other Japanese pitcher coming into the league after the really big name. But Imanaga said, no, I'm here to stay. And I'm going to be just as incredible. And he had a really good season, right? You look at what he did. He had 173 innings pitched. He had 174 strikeouts. He had an ERA under 3 at 2.91. And he had a whip of 102. Then you take a look at a little bit of a deeper dive, right? Great movement on both his fastball and off-speed pitches. His xERA was a 3.39, so not too far off. Got a little lucky, I guess, this year, but still managed to post a pretty nice season. On top of that, the FIP was even higher, so maybe he got a little too lucky this year. But at the same time, I feel he still did a very good job. Fastball was never something that was super impressive. That's blazing speed, but still sitting at 91.5 miles an hour. Gave up a little too much hard contact, but it's 0.6 off from being the red on Savant, so you kind of can't get too mad at 88.6 miles an hour. It's not horrendously hard contact. You got guys to chase a lot, which definitely equated to strikeouts, right? One strikeout over the amount of innings pitched, and I think there's even more upside. Then you look at, how often he got guys whiffed, how often he created a K, how little he walked guys, all great stuff. The other stuff that's a little bit challenging for me, I think, and why Dom, I feel, might have him lower is the barreling is at a pretty good rip at 8.6%. Allowed hard contact about 39.3% of the time and really didn't produce ground balls. Now, that's all fine and dandy for a guy first time seeing, the bigs coming over from Japan, but still managed to keep everything kind of on the stat sheet pretty good. And I got to say, I was actually really impressed. He was able to make things happen with his arsenal. He has an arsenal. four-seam fastball, split finger, sweeper, changeup, curveball, sinker, cutter, slow curve, bananas. And you look at how he distributed his pitches. He really did lean on that four-seam fastball about 52% of the time. Then that split finger about 30. But then everything else was really like under 10%, and understandably so. I think next year he gets a little bit more comfortable with the league and the pace of how good these guys are, and starts mixing it up and creates a little bit more confusion with his pitch mix. And that's an elevation he does into his, second year into the MLB. I have wholeheartedly every confidence in this kid. You don't just walk in this league and go post a sub-3 ERA your first time around unless you got potential, unless you got the talent to actually do it. I'm not going to say he's going to go and have a sub-3 this year, but anywhere from like a 3.2 to a 3.5 with the strikeout numbers the same, and I think he'll get 200 innings pitched. This will be a top 15 pitcher without a doubt. Question.
I'll jump in. It's not that I don't like Imanaga. It's just that I don't see the upside of a high end SP2. And honestly, I was talking about a little bit yesterday. Early ADP is out. You can look at that, and Matt, you literally spot on with Imanaga. Early ADP is indicating that the experts are taking him as the 15th starting pitcher off the board. You pointed out all the good stuff, so I'm going to play devil's advocate here, and I'm just going to go to the other side. I have Imanaga ranked as my 37th starting pitcher off the board. I know it's low. I get it. I think the ERA can stay low. I think he's going to be like you said. I think 3.2, 3.5 in between that range at ERA, right? The strikeouts is where I'm worried a little bit. He's been all over the place. Even you look back, through his track record in Japan, and it's literally one season to the next. He's well under a K per nine. He's over a K per nine. He's right at a K per nine. So it's honestly almost like a mystery bag as to where we're going to be at with the strikeouts when it comes to Imanaga. Cubs are a good team. He won 15 games last year. I could totally see him doing that again. The whip too. He's honestly been a mediocre kind of whip guy for most of his career, been around like a 105, 106 on average. Had the 102 last year. I think he'll be a plus in that department too. But when you're talking about a high-end SP2, right, you want somebody that is going to have a big strikeout total and, definitely going to be a contributor in whip as well. And those are the two main departments when I look at Imanaga. He's also 31 years old going into the season, so it's not like he's a spring chicken. I would love him if I get him as my SP3. It's just that I'm not paying that SP high-end SP2 price, especially when I have guys in that range. Hunter Green has monster upside. Framber Valdez does what Imanaga does, but on a better scale, and he's proven it time and time again. So it's not so much as I don't like Imanaga as I like other starting pitchers more. And I think that's really just the case I'm making. And I could be wrong. I could be the odd man out on Imanaga, and everybody else loves him. Everyone else has him ranked inside their top 20. I'll throw my flag in it, and I'll stand on it, guys. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Sometimes this is why we do this. If we knew everything, we'd win every single league all the time. But you know what? This is the one I'm going to plant my flag, and I think I'm going to stay lower on Imanaga for now. If I see reason to move him up going forward, I will. But that's where I'm at. That's where I'm at on Imanaga.
I can't. Everything you say is valid. It's not like you're, off the, out of your mind.
It's just the like of other pitchers more. I don't see any glaring holes in the guy's game. I think he's going to be a valid contributor. Like I said, low ERA. The strikeouts worry me, and the whip is okay. It's solid. I like other guys more, and that's where I'm going to stand on it.
Okay, fair enough. All right, your turn. Pick a guy.
All right, so that's what I was going to say here. All right, so let's jump back in. Matt, let's go the other way here, right? Because I think you have this guy ranked a little bit lower, and I think I'm closer to ADP on this guy. Let's do Garrett Crochet real quick. Let's sneak in. Let's do Crochet, and honestly, let's just start with the numbers from last year, because in the innings he did pitch, he was really, really good. He showed out, and he's a big boy too. I always forget he's 6'6", lefty, 245, 25 years old. Was an all-star this past season with those Chicago White Sox. That's why he only won 6 games, 12 losses, a 3.58 ERA, 146 innings to 209 strikeouts, a 106 whip. His FIP was a 2.69. I have Garrett Crochet currently ranked as my 23rd starting pitcher. I believe that
Right,
he
right ahead of you, actually.
Oh, dude. Oh, you okay? So you did. Okay, you might have snuck him up on me there. So the thing with Crochet is, and I know a lot of people, he's on the White Sox. He's actually coming off the board, early ADP as SP13. If Crochet gets traded to a contender, I honestly do think the sky is the limit, and I really think that's where everyone's going to be planting their flag on. His pitch mix is really, really good. He does a lot of things really well. Good extension, good ground balls, gets a lot of chases, swinging and miss. He's just a big strikeout guy. Almost reminds me a little bit of the Spencer Strider. He's got that big four-seam fastball, sits around 97, and then he has that cutter that comes in. But the cutter is where I think he needs a little bit of work. He's throwing that 28% of the time. It got hit at a 270 clip last year, and he had other pitches that performed fairly well. The sweeper was pretty good for him. Only threw it 10% of the time, though. Got good results on it, and the changeup was good too. Did only throw it 6% of the time, but it's a good pitch mix for a young kid that has worked on things over the years. And I just, like I said, I really think this kid has a lot of upside. He's another guy that when I just, not to go back and, to do the whole thing again with Imanaga, but I'd rather chase the upside of a guy like with Crochet than, take the chance on Imanaga. But that's where I'm at with Crochet. I think he's going to be really, really good. Matt, I'm sorry. I thought we differed on him a little bit more.
No, it's all good. But guys, you're going to have to find out why I like him so much after this. Okay, Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out all the fluff and shows you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste your time searching through thousands of tickets. With Game Time Picks, curation makes it easier to save more on sports, comedy, concerts, theater, and so much more. Game Time has a plethora of great features, such as their all-in-one pricing toggling. This feature shows you all upfront total costs, so no surprises at checkout. Views from your seat. Get a panoramic view from your seat in the app. So before you buy, make sure you're not sitting behind that pole. Lowest price is guaranteed, so Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. And Game Time's ticket coverage is the best in the business, with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app and create an account. Use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It is game time. Introducing the Locked On Fantasy Baseball Podcast Diamond Club on Subtext, your ultimate fantasy baseball companion. Rely on our off season this season. Yeah, rely on us this off season and get our, redraft rankings, dynasty rankings, prospect rankings, sleepers, breaks out, busts, bounce back players, so much more. All the stuff we offer that's going to help you win your league. Quite honestly, guys, I have hard and heavy now that I'm back in full swing. I got my rankings done, so now it's just me nitpicking and yelling at myself for why would you be this stupid constantly? And they're only getting better by the hour. So you're going to want a piece of that. We promise this week it will be dropping. I'm going to drop it on Friday and then every Friday from now till then. So we'll get in the action now. You get a free 2 weeks. Links in the description below. So let's get back into it. Why do I like Garrett Crochet? Well, I like Garrett Crochet because he was on an innings pitch limit last year. And, the only reason he didn't get traded is because he pretty much said, well, I'm not coming out of the bullpen unless you pay me. So that's what stopped him from getting traded. He will get traded to a contender in next year. And he will not have an innings limit, I feel, because he pitched 147 innings in 146 innings last year. I don't foresee them pushing that back. I think he'll hit anywhere from 275 to 200. It's definitely in the realm of possibility. He was on pace to do that until they slowed him down. So it is what it is. Crochet is just going to be good. I mean, the 209 strikeouts to 146 innings, like Dom said, absolutely entice me. As I talk about him, he might even end up getting moved up. That's how much I enjoy this kid. It's just really tough to rank him because of the low win possibilities and all that wonderful stuff until I see where the contender going. But I'm going to promise you right now, he's not getting traded before the trade deadline unless something ridiculous comes through where somebody's going to absolutely unload their prospects. And I just don't foresee that happening. It's going to be a trade deadline, unfortunately, but still going to be great for fantasy. But anyway, let's move on. Well,
Who we got up next, brother?
So I guess we need to talk about Luis Castillo. All right.
He's a fun one, man.
He is. I have him kind of ranked with respect at 11. And you have him ranked 1, so literally a 10-spot difference. And with Castillo, I understand the year he had, the age, right? All that wonderful stuff. But I'm not really like too scared at the end of the day of him because he's been so good for so long and he's 31 years old. And I like pitchers as they get older. Not like 39 like Verlander, but I like them as they get older, especially once they hit their early 30s. They get better with age. It's very rare we see somebody break down. And some of the underlying stats aren't atrocious. Like the fastball velocity is still solid. You know, the amount he was able to get people to chase. He didn't really walk guys. You just saw a lot of bad like xERA, x batting average. He didn't get guys to whiff or strike out, and he allowed guys to barrel and allowed a lot of hard contact. Like those were the biggest like no-nos. But you go back every single year and you just keep looking and looking, and he's had not only like fluctuations in these stats, but also too he's at elite seasons at this, and the talent just doesn't disappear. And you look at like things like, okay, his fastball and breaking balls were absolutely amazing in terms of movement, and then his off-speed pitches completely took a doo-doo. So years where he spread the ball, and he leaned on other pitches like his sinker that, honestly had a bad batting average this year at 299, and at 306. Just still on the same page with that, and it's just like I don't really see much of a difference. I kind of just got to go like this with Castillo. Give him the year break. He's been a trusted top 12 arm for years. You kind of just got to take a reset, take a name you trust at the beginning of the draft, and just kind of go with it. There's guys that are so much more risky at the earlier parts of the draft. Like you look at like Kirby, who you hope can break into it. Blake Snell, that usually is a known slow starter. Hunter Green, who's only done it once. Even Imanaga, all the downside that Dom talked about. The Valdezes, who honestly had a little bit of a slower start last year. These are all guys I wouldn't take as my SP1 and feel comfortable about it. With Castillo, I'm going to take him, but I'm instantly going to pair him with one of those guys so I have some stabilization. But the basis around it is I'd much rather have Castillo and the upside of that elite performance that we've seen for years versus these other guys and feeling super uncomfortable at my 1.
Yeah, I like Luis Castillo a lot, Matt. The thing is you started to touch on it a little bit. I think the age is catching up to him a little bit in a bad way. As you were talking about, he had a lot more success with the sinker and the changeup in 23, and then in 24 they started to look a little bit worse. He actually lost about a mile per hour on his fastball too, which is interesting because in 2023, Luis Castillo was sitting around, 96 and a half, and batters hit 165 against his fastball. And then in 2024, still good results. But the fastball was down to about 95.6, and batters hit 203. So when you think about that 40%, not 40%, but that 40-point batting average jump, that's a lot for batting average to go from 165 to 203. It might not seem like it because it's still a low number, but that's a lot to jump up. So that scares me a little bit about a guy that's getting a little bit older, which just kind of indicates to me that, hey, maybe the strikeout dip is real, so maybe he might not be that big K per 9 guy anymore. And if that ERA, is at the mid threes, he's around a K per 9. The whip was high last year at a 1.16. When you look at like ERA indicators like FIP, he was at a 3.91 last year. The year before, he was at a 3.81. So I just see a lot of bad trends stuff, a lot of bad, trends for Luis Castillo here. I do have him at 22, so I do still like him. I think you kind of know the floor. I don't think he's worse than like a 3.5 ERA, around a K per 9 with like a 1.15-ish whip. I think that's about the baseline. I don't think he's gonna be too much worse than that this year, but I'm not expecting an upside thing. I'm not expecting a bounce back. I'm taking Luis Castillo if I went with like a Yamamoto as my SP1 or a guy like that. I'm trying to make pairings like that where he's more of like, okay, I know what I'm getting here. If I get any more, it's upside. And, I probably wouldn't pair him with like another super safe SP1 because then it just doesn't really makes sense for me. But I do like me some Luis Castillo. And coming up next, guys, we have names like, we're going to do Tyler Glass now today. We'll probably talk some George Kirby, and then a couple more mystery names that you're going to find out about if you stay locked on.
Whoopsie.
And folks, get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 to get 150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. And guys, we might as well make that $5 count so you can win some money. And Matt, we say it every week, and I honestly think it works out every week, because if you've been doing these bets, you've been making some money. Bet against the Giants and the Jets, man. It's a mess here in New York as far as football goes. So like I said, pretty much take the under on anything, yards, touchdowns, totals. I'm really not a big fan of anybody. Bet, I'm honestly not sure if it's their bye week this week. Matt, correct me. Is Philly playing this week, Matt? Can we bet on Saquon?
Oh yeah, they're playing.
Bet on
They had a bye
Saquon.
week in week 6.
Bet on Saquon Barkley. Bet on Saquon Barkley everywhere. And guys, again, you can do that at FanDuel.com today. Oh, Matt, how I wish that we could sit here and talk a little bit of football. We'll probably do that after the podcast. But, guys, this is a fantasy baseball podcast, and we're jumping back in. Matt, I'm trying to see. I think we're close on a lot of these guys. I think one name that I saw we're a little bit different on, and is a fun name because I like him. I think the fans like him too. Let's do Freddy Peralta real quick. I want to talk about some steady Freddie. I have Freddie at 26. Matt, I think you said you had him a little bit lower than that, right? And I kind of want to see
35.
Okay, so we're about 9 spots. So if there's a little bit of a difference there, kind of ADP has him at 28. So actually, kind of a couple of spots lower than where I have him. I still really think there's a Cy Young season from Freddy Peralta at some point in his career. He has the talent to do it. He's so inconsistent on a start-to-start basis, and I think that's what kills him in the long run. Last year, Freddy Peralta had 32 starts, a 3.68 ERA, 173 innings, 200 strikeouts, and a 1.21 whip. Now, it's just funny because I feel like every year he's just missing one aspect of it. Like if you look back at 23, it was a 3.86 ERA, but he had 165 innings, 210 strikeouts, a 1.11 whip. And then in 2022, he was on his way, but it was only 17 starts. He's still only 29. If you know Freddy Peralta's been around for a long time, he's still only 29 this year. And I really, really feel like this could be, the Cy Young year for him, where everything comes together. The pitches are working. He finds the consistency. And he really is a student of the game. He really does like to put that work in. Often injured. So you know what? I like to see that, over the last 2 years, we got a big innings total out of him. We got over 30 starts the last 2 years. If he can, I promise you guys, if he can find a way to get it done again this year, I really, really think he's got the stuff. He's got that good fastball, sits around 95 with that. He gets good results there. The slider's good too, comes in at 21% of the time. Batters only hit 203 against that. And then he throws the changeup 17% of the time. Literally all his pitches get good results on the total, but he has those blow-up starts, similar fashion to Aaron Nola, where he gives up, 5-6 runs in one start. And if he can limit that to maybe 1 or 2 times in a season instead of about 4 or 5, the kid's a problem because the strikeouts are there. He can limit the walks, like we saw in 23. I just really, really like Freddy Peralta, and I don't see any reason that he can at least at minimum be like a dominant SP2, even though I have him ranked outside of that. I have him as a high-end SP3, but even if you're taking him as your SP2, I think you'll walk away happy.
Yeah. I like him. A 2 is a little aggressive. We this year, and it kind of hurt. He didn't perform like a 2. He performed like a 3, if not like on borderline 4 on some occasions. And it's nice to see the strikeout numbers. That's really what you drafted him for. But you look at the ERA and what the FIP says as well, and it's like, oh boy, here we go. And then the whip follows through, and then you look at all the underlying stats. and you just look, he didn't get guys to chase this year, even though he created a lot of whiffs and Ks, walk guys, a lot of barreling, and didn't produce a lot of ground balls. I don't feel great with him as my 2 anymore. I think he's definitely a solid 3, and that's really just it. Like, you want to take him as your first 3, I don't blame you. You want to pick him over other names, I won't blame you. But for me, there's other names around where I have him ranked where I'm just going to go, okay, I feel a little bit better about it, right? And 3 starts at 25, right? So, and Don, where did you say you had him ranked?
26.
26. So I have Michael King at 26. Him or Michael King?
I have King at 25. How about that?
Cool. Luis Heel.
I've buried Heel's really, really far down for me.
You're crazy. We'll have to talk about that on another one.
That's why I didn't want to get into it here.
Yeah, there's a lot of names that just like pop up like that I feel have higher upside. Like even the Max Fried that I have at 31, I'm still picking Max Fried, especially depending on the landing spot. He's a free agent.
Yes,
could seriously affect where he's going to be drafted as well. He's going to probably rise in my rankings. So like there's names that are around that I have Freddy Peralta under that I feel I would just much rather have. He has just fallen in that regards. And there's still also a realm of possibility, yes, where he could have a Cy Young year, but also a year where he could have a 4 ERA. So like that's just how volatile his finishes can be. And I just would prefer to just have him as like my last ditch effort at my 3 versus my first option.
I hear it. I feel like he's just a guy I'm a sucker for. He's one of those guys for me that you just keep going back to the well on, and you're like, yeah, this is the year, man. He's one of those guys for me.
Dude, I hear last year when I wanted to anoint, Zack Gallen, and now he's back to where I have him now. He's a solid 2.
Speaking of that, we're talking about Zack Gallen.
Yeah, like Zack Gallen, after 2023, I was like, man, I was ready to just give him the hat, give him the king, and just be like, okay, cool. But no, he went back to being hurt. He went back to like the blow up starts and just not being himself, or at least that one season that we're all trying to chase essentially for 22 and 23, even we'll say for a matter of that. But now only 148 innings pitched. The strikeouts were just like 10 more. Like that isn't fun. And then ERA was a 3.65 when you're hoping he's going to be under 3.5, if not like closer to 3. That's what you draft them at. Literally, I was drafting to be my SP1 in a lot of leagues. That was the expectation. He was the number 1 pitching prospect in baseball for a long time. And, you get 2 years of some sexy baseball, and then you're like, boom. But Gallen can't get it together no matter what we try, unfortunately. And there isn't much supporting whether he could actually be more than a 2. This year, everything was down. Chase, whiff, walks, barrels, hard contact. It was just ugly across the board. You could even talk about, what do you call it? The injury and things like that. But you look at 23 and it makes me feel stupid because it makes 23 screams everything that 22 is just not repeatable for him. And it was kind of a hollow season in 23. So 23 was just if everything kind of went right, and 24 was if everything just went to, average. And this is where I think we're just going to be with him. He's a solid low end 2, and I don't think he'll ever be a 1, in my opinion, or even a high end 2 ever again.
Matt, did you say we have him ranked?
19.
So you're actually higher than me on Gallen. I have Gallen at 24, but I do like Gallen a lot. And ADP's has him at 33 right now. So Matt, we'll have a lot of Zack Gallen. I think it's funny that you have him ranked higher than me. And I think you gave the pessimistic take, and I'm about to give the optimistic take. I don't think, like I said, I don't think he's ever an SP1 again, but can he be a solid SP2? I think so. I think he can be a low 3s ERA kind of guy where, his career ERA is a 3.29 over 815 innings. He was dealing with the hamstring issue this year. Let's not forget that. Had kind of a similar issue back in 2021 where he only made 23 starts and was actually dealing with the same hamstring issue. So it kind of says he's not one of those guys that pitches really well through injury. So I think Zack Gallen could really get back, stay around that, well over a K per 9 where he is. I think the whip is where he's going to get back on track. He's a career 1.13 whip guy. I think we see him be a lot closer to that than the 1.26 we saw this year. The ERA indicators love Zack Gallen, so I think that ERA could like be a low threes, as I mentioned. I might even move Zack Gallen up after this, so I think we should be definitely looking into Zack. But guys, with that being said, that is all for today. Please be sure to like, subscribe, comment, rate, and review. And shout out to our everydayers and new listeners for making Locked On Fantasy Baseball your first listen each and every day. And after you make us your first listen, go check out our boy Sully over on Locked On MLB. Make him your second listen each and every day. He does a great job of covering the league a little bit differently than we do. But guys, until next time, see ya.
Peace.